and I was like, all right, I'm going to get some sleep. And I think I tweeted, I'm finally going to go to sleep. About 5 minutes later, boom. And I immediately got contacted by the security team going, they're shelling.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the 401 Access Denied podcast. So, really excited to be here. I'm your host for the episode, Joseph Carson, and I'm joined again with Chloe, my new co host of the shows. So, Chloe, do you want to give us an introduction, who you are, and also who the
Yeah.
guest will be?
Hi, everyone. My name is Chloe Mistagi, and I'm the Chief Impact Officer over at Cybrary. And today we have Chris Kabeka. Chris, why don't you tell the world a little bit about yourself?
Well, I wear a couple of different hats. I run my own incident management company for nation state attacks only with government reference. And also, I am currently the distinguished chair of the Middle East Institute's Cybersecurity and Emerging Technology program, as well as being an ethical hacker.
Fantastic. One of the things I think me and Chloe's been watching this year, which has been fascinating, just watching your journey and experience. I think we were kind of chatting on social media quite often as we were going through that. It was quite shocking, and the episodes this year and the events, starting from January right through to even now, has been shocking the world. And what's been happening in Ukraine has just been devastating. It's been sometimes even hard to watch and difficult to watch in the reality of what's happening. And I think the audience would really like to kind of see your journey. What's been happening. Can you start? What were you doing in Ukraine to begin with, and kind of give us a bit of a background of how you got there? Because I know we've done a lot of kind of work before, and just curious, kind of how your travels started there.
Oh, definitely. I was asked if I would stage in the capital city in case there were any nuclear cyber attacks. Part of my
Hmm.
background is dealing with nuclear cyber incidents. So I've done six kind of big ones
Hmm.
in the past. And I thought, well, haven't been to Ukraine before. Sure thing, right? So I ended up taking the very last Air France flight into the
Hmm.
capital city and got there on the 20th. And it was very interesting because no one really knew what was going to happen. There had been troop buildups
Hmm.
along some of the borders, and there was a lot of fake news going around, a lot of propaganda, misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, as well as is what Western media telling us going to actually happen, or is this just a lot of fluff? Because unfortunately, the way that you get news stories, clicks and reads is to make them as sensationalized as possible. That happens everywhere.
Hmm.
Um, so the next day, around the time that I got notice that Air France was cutting off all flights during a very late lunch dinner, um, I also was notified that there were attacks against the water infrastructure in Luhansk that they were starting to attribute to cyber attacks, and it affected all of the water infrastructure at once,
Hmm.
which nobody believed it was just a breakdown of the mechanics of the facilities. And also around that time, ATM machines again in the capital city stopped working. By Tuesday, the next day, there were problems with currency exchange, and
Hmm.
also there started to get disruptions with the Dia app, which is the ID app that Ukraine has, where it
Hmm.
has your ID, your tax information, your car registration, your vaccination status, and your business information as well if you own a business.
Hmm.
By Wednesday, things were starting to heat up. I just happened to be in the hotel, the Intercontinental in Kiev, where all the journalists were at. So
Hmm.
there were a lot of conversations going around. Some of the major media decided to leave, which is understandable.
Yeah.
And then there were plans put into motion. We had received through one particular media outlet intelligence from the Pentagon themselves saying that they thought an attack would occur at 4 a.m. on Thursday morning, the 24th.
Hmm.
Um, since I was not the immediate recipient, the journalist who got it asked me to speak with the staff because he wasn't permitted to, and tell them, because they had been asking me when they should leave. So I told them they should get their stuff and start going. We also started setting up evacuation plans. I had a couple of routes out. One was with a particular security team of a media outlet. So he got me ready with where we were going to meet, when we were going to go, a flak vest as well to get everything prepared. And then on the other side, a Ukrainian that I'd met, because I had gone around Kiev a little bit, kind of, waiting for a phone call. Something bad was going to happen to the nuclear infrastructure. And he had already arranged a bus, and he had asked me that evening at about 10 p.m., should I get my family out? And I said, yes, absolutely. So he started moving his wife and children south of the capital city, but said he would be back early in the morning to pick us up if I didn't want to go with the news media. So it seemed, like a tense time, but I had been on a call that evening with a bunch of kind of like-minded people, national security with a focus on cyber, which lasted until about 3 a.m. Thursday morning. I love the call and love the people, hate the time zone difference. It's every Wednesday.
Yes.
And I'd also quoted a tweet when one journalist said there's a rumor that the attack is going to start at 4 a.m. And I said, yes, that's the rumor. We're all expecting it, basically. So I tried to go to sleep. I was watching a UN special session, and I thought, all right, I'll make sure I had my bag packed. I'd already cleared out all the non-perishables from the minibar, just in case, right? Because you don't know.
You never know when's the next time you get a shop or money.
Correct, right? And I was wearing my clothes, and I was like, all right, I'm going to get some sleep. And I think I tweeted, I'm finally going to go to sleep. About 5 minutes later, boom. And I immediately got contacted by the security team going, they're shelling. Because at first we were hoping that they were just shelling right along the border, but where the capital city is, it's actually not that far from the border. So we started getting more shelling as it was starting to get daylight. We could see there was smoke all around. We got word that the airport had been heavily damaged and possibly destroyed. And by 6 a.m., I decided to go with Mikhail's bus and start getting out with them. And we were trying to figure out, okay, how many other people need to get out. There was one person with the bus that also had been registering Americans and basically people from the US or Canada, Australia, New Zealand. So Five Eyes, if you don't know what Five Eyes are, it's those particular countries. And I had my bag packed. I left half my stuff behind because when you're going to evacuate from a war zone, you kind of want to do it lightweight. So I had my one bag and my mini bag, my mini bar stuff, right, all ready to go, and flak vest ready to go. And we headed down to it was a Hilton. And when we got there, I was looking at this building like, this is one of the tallest buildings in the capital city. Why are we picking up people here? But okay, cool meeting place. And there was a lot of panic on the streets. People started walking with luggage, trying to get out. You could see that the traffic was getting very bad. And we had a group of Americans that were so panicked. They had brought, like, I don't know, 8 large suitcases. Again, when you're evacuating, it's best not to, because those suitcases take up room from people who can actually get in.
It takes away space from people who actually need to get moving.
Right. So we ended up having the Sprinter van, which could fit, I think, 26 people, and then a car. to follow. And we made the decision because they had asked, well, which way should we go? And I go, well, we can't go north. We can't go east. The traffic is terrible to the west. Let's go south.
Mhm.
And the two Americans that had all the luggage, they panicked so bad that they then were just in tears, started removing the luggage. And then I realized why. We started seeing paratroopers in the sky
Mhm.
coming, which is not a good sign. And of
Yeah.
course, this whole time you could hear shelling. And then we got warned about a tank column on its way to the capital city, which luckily, I believe it was a young man with a drone that warned the Ukrainian army, and they were able to
Mhm.
take out that tank column before it got to the capital city. So, thank goodness for other people. So we were almost on our way out, and there was this guy that walked up to us in English. He's like, "Can you help us? We came here for business, and when we contacted the people who hired us, they were like, new phone? Who's this?" With no evacuation plan for him. So we're like, well, we got this luggage off, and the two Americans, left with all this luggage. We have room, just get on. And it was 8 Romanians
Mhm.
who were there for journalistic purposes. So they ended up getting on. And we ended up, luckily, Mikhail, he had been a tour operator throughout Ukraine, so he knew a lot of the back roads.
Mhm.
And we started heading through the back roads, trying to avoid the traffic. We almost got stuck in a farmer field. That was not good at all. And then finally, we got through the field, had to backtrack a
Mhm.
bit, and then got to the city where he had put his wife and 2 children in, which was just south of Kiev.
Mhm.
Again, heading through the back roads, trying to avoid the highway because people don't
Yeah.
particularly like to get bombed.
So going the back roads, and I mean, then you get into the quality of the roads can be pretty bad,
Yep.
if I remember, and also then you also have not as many fuel stations as well. Did that cause any problems of quality of the roads and also probably shortage of fuel?
Oh, absolutely. They had started restricting fuel. At that point, it
Mhm.
was to 20 liters, which I think is that 4 gallons? Something
That's
like that,
yes,
and
yeah,
something like
close,
that.
close to.
And, here we had the 2 vehicles, so whenever we could, we tried to make sure that we had, enough gasoline,
Mhm.
because also it was cold. We ended up having 26 people total between the 2 vehicles, so you need to keep the heat on. We had kids,
Mhm.
they didn't quite understand what was going on, but their parents told them that they were going on a camping trip, an adventure.
Okay.
Uh, so figured that was best, right? And we decided to use some of my friends. I contacted a buddy of mine. He goes by Dutch Osint guy,
Mhm.
and he's in the Netherlands. And I go, hey, I don't know how much longer internet's going to stay up because it was already getting affected. So can you help us get a safe route to avoid bad areas
Mhm.
by tracking my GPS on my phone? And he goes, yep, definitely. So we started to do that, and then the next bigger, not big city, but bigger than a village, we were actually going to turn into to take a break because the kids were going
Mhm.
buck wild. And right before we were going to head into that city, he goes, "Don't go to that city. Bombing is imminent." So I
Mhm.
told the bus in front of us because I was in the car behind, and Mikhail made a very sharp right turn and started hauling ass. Again, it was a back road. So we were hitting probably about 100 or over 100
Mhm.
kilometers an hour. And within seconds of turning, we all heard the bombs start to be dropped.
Mhm.
So luckily, we avoided that. Um, and we ended up going through several villages. We noticed propaganda pamphlets were
Mhm.
dropped on the road. And also, we found that the Wagner Group had already had people in south and central to Kiev, and they were
Mhm.
trying to set up checkpoints and try to stop us. And we decided to press on the gas as hard as possible to blow past them
Mhm.
because that would have been a bad thing.
And for the audience, it's for the Wagner Group itself is basically the mercenary paid military and intelligence part of Russia. So it's a very kind of common thing that they use from a privatization perspective.
Yeah, they are not people you want to stop and chat with. Let's put it
Correct.
that way, right? We ended up catching up to the truck that was actually dropping the propaganda pamphlets, which I snapped a photo of. I should have tweeted that out. Um, and we ended up driving probably well over 20 hours
Mhm.
that day. So tired, in fact, that one of the last checkpoints we went through, Ukrainian checkpoints,
Mhm.
Mikhail was so tired he actually bumped into one of the barricades.
Mhm.
Luckily, there wasn't enough damage to keep us from driving. And he picked a spot that was about an hour, hour and a half driving distance from Syria, Romania, where there was no real town. It was a resort, not usually open that time of the
Yeah,
year. He called,
because we're talking about still late January, so it's
February. Yeah.
February. Yeah, so it's kind of cold and not touristy season. So yeah.
No, no. But we figured we wanted to be someplace where we wouldn't get bombed, and there
Mhm.
was nothing around. And so we figured, all right, we'll sleep a few hours and then start heading towards the border. So that's what we did. And we had heard that there were long lines at the border, but we didn't know that those long lines were more like days of lines
Okay.
because we were so absolutely tired. Mikhail, myself, and Brian were all taking shifts driving the two vehicles and then
Mhm.
trying to get sleep. And I also found out, I hope this doesn't offend anyone, I'm kind of glad I'm not a parent. Boy, hats off to parents because I
Mhm.
swear to goodness gracious, anytime I tried to sleep, those kids were awake. Wow. Yeah. Woo.
Sounds
So
familiar.
yeah. So we entered the very long line. Some people had been there a while, so obviously very stressed out,
Mhm.
yelling, banging on cars, "Don't you dare jump in line in front of me!" All sorts of stuff. And there were limited services. And then when we could get some internet, because it was very spotty, we learned that all of the border crossings were like that. As night started to fall, we're like, well, it's not like we're going to be able to turn back around. We're going to all be sleeping in this bus now. Yay! I swear the kids just never slept.
Oh
And
my god.
There's so
I'm
much
not
They thought they're going on a camping trip. They're so
right.
excited. It's like
So
Disneyland.
right?
excitement and
Okay.
energy is definitely, it's something an adventure for them. So
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we were, kind of inching along little by little, trying to keep people from, beating the bus up. There were some, there was a petrol station on the right hand side, and we were able to get a bit of water, which was
mhm.
good, and some snacks. And of course, I had the mini bar snacks, so that was good. Um, and then I had to stay awake to keep moving forward that evening. And so I decided to do a Ask Me Anything on Twitter while it was going,
Yeah.
and while I could get internet. We were close enough to the border where I could manually switch and try to keep switched to a Romanian provider. And then we
Mhm.
could get internet, but the Ukrainian provider was just getting hit. And I heard later from the news that the Russians were disrupting the internet service already.
Yeah.
Um, then, probably about 2 or 3 a.m., the wife of Mikhail woke up and noticed we weren't moving at all. So she's like, all right, I'm going to try to talk to a border guard. And she decided to do, I don't know, it was like almost 3 kilometers to do the walk to talk to someone.
Mhm.
And when she came back, she's like, there's been a cyber attack. Well, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So as daylight broke, we started moving again a little bit, and then Misha and I, or Mikhail, I call him Misha,
Mhm.
Mikhail. decided to walk up ourselves to speak to the border guards, and he did all the translation because he speaks 4 languages. And he introduced me, saying, "Hey, why I was in Ukraine, what's going on?" And they're like, "Yeah, we've had a cyber attack, a wiper virus." So they sent us through the chain all the way up to the senior officer, who said, "Yeah, everything's been wiped." One of the reasons why it was so slow getting through the border was they could only let through one car at a time. They were using pencil and paper,
Mhm.
one car at a time, when hundreds of thousands, if not a million people were trying to get out.
Mhm.
So after the senior officer used a landline to check me out, he came back saying, "All right, you need to get out. Bring your bus forward. We'll send a soldier to get through." Because
Mhm.
trust me, the crowd was not pleased that we were suddenly cutting in line.
Yeah, when you see somebody coming from the back and you've been there for probably days,
Right?
it's not a good feeling.
It's not a good feeling, right? So we got to the front. I was also told, there was various lists that
Mhm.
were supposedly going around. I'm not sure if it ended up being true or not, but that there were people that the Russians wanted to kill in Ukraine, and I have a tendency to make fun of Putin. So perhaps it was not very safe for me to be in Ukraine at that moment. Um, so we were able to get out. Luckily, because at first I seriously thought we might have to like bribe some people
Mhm.
as well. So I always have like a little bit of gold on me, something I learned
Mhm.
from the military, to buy your freedom. So getting together, any cash that we might have,
Mhm.
whatever, with a busload of people and jewelry, and trying to figure out, all right, if we have to bribe our way out to actually get out, this is what we're going to do. Luckily, they let us all out. No bribery needed. And they also let out Mikhail,
Mhm.
which at the time they were not letting basically any men get out.
Yeah, there's conscription. So basically everyone was basically conscribed to an army that was below 65 or something, or I can't remember which
Yeah,
age.
yeah. And there was another complication, well, several. If you had the time to grab your exemption letter,
Mhm.
that was nice, but of course people were fleeing, but the digital records of exemptions was also wiped.
Mhm.
So basically, anybody that felt like they were also in the medical field, male or female, could not get out.
Mhm.
And with that, there were some ID databases that were wiped, including some that involved children. So if you didn't have a hard copy and proof that your child was absolutely yours, they weren't going to let you out with a child that you couldn't prove was yours
Improve or
either.
some documentation. Because I mean, when people's fleeing, it's not like you're gonna go and start looking through your drawers for all of the paperwork and stuff, and time is essential. And I've heard lots of, stories where, documentation has been left behind, and trying to prove is very difficult at that point.
Don't you just hate it when a podcast episode leaves at a cliffhanger? Well, unfortunately, that's what's happening here. Make sure to tune in the next 2 weeks for the continued journey of Chris Kobeka escaping from Ukraine.